In late 2024, I threw together this video comparing VMware to VirtualBox. Well, VMware Workstation walked all over VirtualBox. But now, it's 2026, and there are new updated versions of each out. Did VirtualBox get any better? Also, I've heard talk on forums of Broadcom's updates ruining VMware. So let's put them back together and see how they do. And afterwards, we'll put all these new results up against the previous results to see what changes there were, if any. Now, I'm going to be using the same hardware as last time. I've since upgraded this PC to an i7, but I downgraded it back to the same i5 used in the original video. This will let us see how they compare now to how they performed before. Of course, because of Windows updates, it won't be a one-to-one comparison, but should give us an idea. The hardware used is an i5 6500 with 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM. Each virtual machine will have 8 gigs of RAM allocated and 4 cores. I usually allocate less cores than what the host has, but I wanted to compare the VMs to the host, and there's nothing else running on the PC anyways. Each test will be done with a clean install of Windows, that way any remnants of VMware or VirtualBox won't affect the results of the other. Now, both VMware Workstation and VirtualBox are free to download and use for personal use. To get VirtualBox, just go to virtualbox.org and click download. It's that simple. You'll need to download, obviously, for the platform that you're using, as well as the extension pack. And that's about it. Now, to get VMware Workstation, there's a little bit more involved. You have to go to support.broadcom.com and create an account. Now, I like to use just kind of like a side or a junk email for this sort of thing. That way I'm not getting spammed by them all the time on my main account. Once you create an account and log in, the way that I find it is I click My Downloads, and then you click where it says Free Software Downloads here. Scroll down to VMware Workstation, and then choose the version you want. Now, since the interfaces haven't changed much, here's what I said last time about them. Workstation is great because it allows you to customize things that Player just wouldn't allow. But I have to say, I'm not sold on the interface. It just seems bulky and clunky. As you can see, for basic use, everything's here, including the machine settings, just like you'd have in the basic Player. The interface, coupled with the VMware drivers on the guest, is extremely snappy. Being able to resize a window and have the guest OS change its resolution on the fly is great. Copy and paste, as well as drag and drop, always seems to work in VMware, unlike VirtualBox. But here's something that drove me nuts. When you choose full screen, yeah, you get the control bar at the top, which is helpful and also annoying at times. But if you stay in full screen mode and you then shut down the guest, this is what you're left with. I assumed it would go back to the Workstation interface, but not like this. The interface is full screen, so you have to close it or use the window control button to demaximize it. It's just an extra step that really got in the way, well, at least for me. Now, you could always create the VM in Workstation and then use it in Player, which for me just seems to work better for my type of use. When the guest is running, you can resize it on the fly, just like before, as well as go full screen, but it's in a much less bulky interface. Now, VirtualBox. I'm not sold on the performance, but I do like the interface far more. It's similar to VMware Player, but just, tidier. Within settings, you can configure your virtual machine, just like in VMware, but when it's running, you have all these buttons or icons at the bottom of the window. These are great as they show the status of drives, and it allows you to make changes just by right-clicking on them. Unfortunately, that's where the good stuff ends. VirtualBox, it's much buggier, and well, it's slower than VMware. That's not to say it's bad software, it's just not nearly as refined. But again, personally, I prefer the VirtualBox interface far more. Okay, so let's get into it and see if there's any performance changes with the new updates. And after this, again, we'll see how they compared against their previous results. First up, Passmark. And in the CPU test, once again, VMware pulled nearly 1,000 points ahead, with much of that score coming from the floating point math test. In the memory test, VMware again pulled ahead, but only slightly. In 7-zip, VirtualBox pulled ahead and finished first, but only by a few seconds. In Handbrake, each are set for CPU-only encoding with no GPU acceleration. And once again, the results were extremely close, with VMware finishing nearly 15 seconds sooner and encoding 0.6 FPS faster. That's impressive considering last time VirtualBox fell behind, rendering 10 FPS slower on average, and therefore took about 5 minutes longer to perform the same encode. In Cinebench R23's single core bench, it seemed at first like they were neck and neck, but as time went on, VMware pulled ahead, once again scoring nearly 100 points higher, and finished a little over 2 minutes sooner. In the multi-core benchmark, things were a lot closer. As you can see, they're pretty much neck and neck, and when it was all over with, VirtualBox again fell behind, but only by about 7 seconds. Last time, VirtualBox fell behind by over a minute, so it's doing much better. Another thing VirtualBox didn't do well with the last time was HD video playback. Here, I have a 1080 60 FPS video playing off of YouTube. And yes, I have VMware tools and the VirtualBox extensions or drivers installed on each respective guest. VirtualBox this time is playing the video perfectly smooth. Smoother actually than VMware, which actually was dropping frames here and there. So I'm actually pretty impressed. VirtualBox did great here. 3D acceleration in a virtual machine without a dedicated GPU being passed through is just software emulation. It's not something I would expect high performance from, however, VMware does a pretty good job at faking it. Now, if you remember last time when I tried running Heaven on VirtualBox, it averaged about 1 FPS at best. This time, it did much better. VMware still pulled far ahead, averaging around 17 FPS, which is a couple FPS slower than last time, while VirtualBox was down at 6.3 FPS. Slower than VMware, but a whole lot better than the 1 FPS it rendered last time. Another thing I noticed was the audio. In VMware, the audio or music would speed up and slow down with a lot of dropouts, while VirtualBox sounded mostly normal with only a few dropouts or crackles here and there. Here, have a listen. First, this is VMware. And now VirtualBox. Now let's take a quick look at how they performed against the performance of the bare host. In 7-zip, the host finished a little over a minute sooner than each VM. In Handbrake, the host obviously performed the best and finished first. However, the virtual machines were only about a minute behind. Similar story to the results of the single-core Cinebench run. VMware was only about a minute and a half slower than the host. In the multi-threaded run, it was much closer, with the host finishing 16 seconds sooner than VMware and 23 seconds sooner than the VirtualBox run. Here's a look at how they all perform. Now, obviously, the host is always going to pull ahead. However, VMware is not too far off in most of the tests. And while VirtualBox didn't really pull ahead too much, it still performed pretty well, especially when compared to the results from last time. I've read a bunch of posts on forums of people saying that VMware Workstation has gone to crap since Broadcom took them over. Now, in my experience, it still seems to perform extremely well, and really the only poor part is Broadcom's website. However, with it now being free software, I'll go through the extra couple steps needed, but I'll just make sure that I have a copy of the installer on my own file server for easy access. There weren't too many tests performed here, but if anyone has any ideas or suggestions, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do about making them happen. Hope everyone's doing well, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.